we will have Jeffrey Sachs in our pavilion. So for everyone who don't want to miss out our program, please join our sessions because we are about to begin our session, the first session with the topic of women and youth and in community climate actions. Buenos dias, ladies and gentlemen. Would like to welcome you to join our first session with a topic of engaging women and youth in community climate actions that will begin in 9 a.m. So for everyone, would like to invite you to join our session. Please take a seat and make yourself comfortable. Thank you. For additional information of Indonesia Pavilion, including the details of the agenda as well as the live streaming of our sessions, you can check on our website at indonesiaunfccc.com. And also for the audience of Indonesia Pavilion, we'd like to inform to join at slido.com for the question and answer session, and we hope that it will be more interactive for today. So you can join, you can go to slido.com and then put the hashtag Indonesia. And then we hope that we can do the interactive discussion today because actually we have several interesting discussions. Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to Indonesia Pavilion. For today, we have 5 sessions, very interesting sessions, with the topic of women and youth, and storytelling to communicate climate crisis, Indonesian National Adaptation Plan, and also about renewable energy. So, everyone would like to welcome you to join us in Indonesia Pavilion because we're about to begin our first session with the title of Engaging Women and Youth in Community Climate Actions. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to begin our first session with the title of Engaging Women and Youth in Community Climate Actions. Well, actually, this is a special day of Indonesia Pavilion because we're we will having our closing ceremony today. That will be held around 3:30. And before that, we will have Jeffrey Sachs in our pavilion. So for everyone who don't want to miss Jeffrey Sachs and our beautiful performance in our closing ceremony, we'd like to welcome you all to join our sessions today. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very good morning to our ladies and gentlemen, guests of Indonesia Pavilion. Allow me on behalf of Indonesia Pavilion, the organizing committee, to extend our heartfelt welcome and thank you for coming here today on our seventh day of Indonesia Pavilion. That actually the last day of Indonesia Pavilion. So we will have closing ceremony in the afternoon. Okay. So for today, we will have the first session about women and youth. So without further delay, I would like to invite the moderator of the session, Ibu Nana. So for Ibu Nana, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I thank God the Almighty for giving this life, time and space for all of us to be able to gather here today. And I also thank the Indonesia Pavilion for have this important session on the roles of women and youth in community climate action, which is very, very important. As many of us know, involving women in protecting the environment would help societies develop the sense of responsibility needed to maintain a good balance between human and earth resources. However, many of native and indigenous women or women from low-income communities or women from the global south bear a heavy burden from the impacts of current ecological crisis as well as climate change because of the historic and continuing impacts of colonialism, racism, or inequality, and in many cases, because they are more reliant upon natural resources for their survival or just live in the areas that have poor infrastructures. Nevertheless, against all odds and all great challenges, women are demonstrating every day that they have unique and essential ideas and skills to offer at this turning point in history, including how we live on Earth and how we live with each other. In traditional communities and customary communities around the world, women manage water, resources for fuel and food, as well as the forest and agriculture terrain. So women in many parts of the world also act as the immense force of social change in directing family values, lifestyle, and consumption habits, as well as building resilience to climate change and disaster, while also would support the low emission development. So today we have um, two wonderful women, amazing women that has been working on this and this session, and we would like to hear from them and also to learn from them on their experience and best practices on empowering women in building communities, climate resilience, also like how to integrate gender equality into NDCs, and how we're engaging this on the UNFCCC processes. So I have two wonderful speakers to share with us about that. First is Dr. Janet Gurul. Did I pronounce it right? Yes, I hope so. Who is the Executive Director of Women Organizing for Change in Agriculture and Natural Resources Management. She will talk about acting for climate, empowering women to build climate resilience. And my second speaker is Ibu Tantri Sucipto, the co-founder of Womenpreneur Community, who's going to talk about business incubation on climate, on building climate resilience in community. So without further ado, I would like to invite my first speaker, Dr. Janet Gurung, to the stage. We can give her applause.
Thank you, Ibu. Sulawat pagi and good morning to everybody. I would like to talk today about not only about how we're empowering women in resilience, but how we can increase the attention, resources, and etc. So I'll focus a little bit more on this. But first, this is the last day. Sorry? You want me to? Is that better? Okay. Okay. This is the last day of the Indonesia Pavilion. Also, I think we're almost at the end, so I wanted to also make this a little personal. So in the next slide, or do you want me to do this? Okay. So we at WOCAN is an international network of women and men, professionals in agriculture, forestry, natural resource management, also with gender expertise and commitments to gender equality and women's empowerment. And to be very honest with you, here is where we are. We were formed 15 years ago. I myself have been working in these fields for over 20 years, and we're frustrated, right? There's been such a lack of progress by governments, development agencies, and NGOs, particularly in the environment sector. I'm a forester by training. I'm also a gender expert. And it's been a long uphill struggle to get environment agencies to think about gender. So it's, like I said, 30 years. Here's where we are. I think there's a lot of progress now. But we're also, I think to some degree, we've been surprised that there hasn't really been more attention given the fact that women play, as Ibu said, such a strong role in agriculture, forestry, natural water management, and things like this. And I wanted to update this information with the fact that right now, we learned yesterday that only 2 countries, I don't know which ones they are, sorry, are now regarding women as agents of change in their NDCs. And this is right now at this COP. So this is clearly where we are. We're still waiting even to hear whether the Gender Action Plan is going to be approved. We had expected it would be by now. We're still waiting. So we can always have to be cautious about getting too optimistic about what's going on in this sector. We personally know better. We are completely convinced that women's associations, women farmers, have immense potential to become these very active agents of change. I might personally say I will not talk about the V word of women as vulnerable victims. I think this is very negative in the way we proceed and to see women, because this is not the case. It's not the case in Indonesia. It's not the case in most of the world. So we believe that and we ourselves are energetic and super passionate about ways to strengthen women's leadership and resourcefulness. And we have to look at some of the challenges they face in order to how can we improve their quality of life so that we can expect higher levels of women's engagement in climate action. I just want to put this up. This always shocks me. I think people are not aware that the amount of funding and financing that's gone into supporting women's roles in environment-related work. So you see even MDGs, even before SDGs, is so small. It's here you'll see less than 10% in agriculture and environment, less than 2% of all aid funding. And then again, even when it's allocated to gender and women's empowerment, less than 9% of that money goes to women's organizations, associations that I just told you we think have immense potential to address these problems. And that there's an annual loss of money in these regions when you don't include women into your activities. And on the left side, you see this often quoted UNICEF figure that women do 66% of the work of the world, earn 10% of the resources of the world, and then give back, reinvest 90% back into their families and communities. So if you're a financial person, I think this has to speak to this to you. But we have to be very realistic. What holds women back? Time. In many cases, women are already working extremely long days and just can't take on much more. There's a lot of women, there's a need for leadership skill building, confidence building. That's a huge area for opportunity. But they also need this recognition. We need to recognize that it's women's contributions of labor and knowledge around the environment that is in fact making even some of the mitigation projects, even some of the carbon emissions could not be generated without this free, unpaid, unrecognized care labor of women into the process. So we believe that these need to be recognized, acknowledged, And you can see why I don't like the V word. This is not the picture of a victim. This is a different way of looking at things. So what I wanted to tell you about today was something that my organization has been working on, ways that we can very much identify the technologies that are needed to be provided to women to access them for time saving, for clean water and other things that women are already responsible for within their existing gender roles. And so we need mechanisms to measure, and here's where we're going to move into the next phase. We need measurement of women's empowerment benefits within these environment, climate-related projects so that we can see where is the gap, what works, what doesn't work, and we need to start to measure results, right? So WOCON created the world's first standard measurement system to measure women's empowerment results within projects, not only climate-related projects, but clearly that's where our heart is and that's what we're here for today. So we asked women in rural communities in Nepal and in Kenya about what was women's empowerment, what did that mean to them, and they produced these 6 items around this wheel, and if you can't read it, it's time, leadership, food security, income and assets, knowledge and education, and health. And so we developed methods for each of these 6 areas and indicators to measure results in each of these 6 areas. It addresses SDG 5 for gender equality and women's empowerment as well. So this is a mechanism that makes those women's contributions visible, and it also makes visible the results of projects, climate projects, for example, that are doing something good for women, even if they don't think about this. A classic example is a biogas project. We measured time saving in a biogas project in Nepal. We also did this in Indonesia. Biogas projects were not thinking about women. They were built to measure carbon, deliver carbon benefits, etc., provide clean cooking fuel. And we found out that it was transforming women's lives when they had the time saving and a clean cooking. So that's an example of how we need to use a mechanism that looks beyond the narrowness of just the technology for clean energy or water and see how it's affecting women. We also, through this mechanism, we have the opportunity so we measure the impact, we quantify the impact, and we can monetize it, and we're creating a market for the sale of these, what we call W+ units, that are similar to a carbon unit. Instead of measuring carbon, we're measuring women's empowerment. But we now have the way to stack a women's empowerment unit on top of a carbon unit. So this is a co-benefit of carbon. So who is purchasing these things? For example, there are organizations who are offsetting the travel of their staff by the purchase of carbon offsets. And there's some that are very interested to pay a little bit extra and achieve this co-benefit on top of the carbon benefit. So that's one way. A special requirement of the W+ is that at least 20% of that financial value of that unit must be returned to the women in the project area. There's no other standard that requires that. But if that's our objective, to provide financial resources down to women's organizations at the community level, this is one way we're attempting to do that. Once that money gets into the hands of women, there's no conditions for it. We leave it up to women themselves to decide how to use that money. The program that I mentioned in Nepal was the first one we tried this for. We won the UNFCCC Women for Results Award for this in 2016. It was presented at the COP in Morocco, if any of you are there. As I said, we did not build the biogas digesters. It was the government of Nepal was doing that. We simply went in and measured the time saving. We sold some of these units, and we returned the money to the women's groups in the project areas. What was interesting to us was we watched what they used that money for, and we realized later it was all for livelihood and even climate resilience type of activities that they use that for. We did not tell them what to do with it. They would use it to learn more, to gain more seeds for the agriculture biodiversity. They used the money for building water systems. Of course, they used the money back into their women's associations so they could give more loans. And particularly amazing to me was this group of women used the money to purchase more biogas units for the poorest women in the community who had not been able to afford the subsidized biogas unit. So that was the kind of thing that women there could do. There's much more about this. There's a very nice little 2-minute video clip made by the UNFCCC when we won the award, narrated by Mary Robinson, that I would recommend you check out. So here we're trying to say that through the idea of building this market-based measurement system, the idea was to incentivize, as I said, 30 years of my experience working with environment people, not doing anything on gender. Even we train them, it's not that people don't understand it, it's just it didn't have an incentive. It did not matter whether somebody was really looking at gender or not. So we said, can we build a profit-generating system so a project developer can actually generate this kind of units and make profit and plow it back into their activities. So this was the idea, that there's a triple win solution. The women, first and foremost, the women of the community need those extra resources, no question. But we wanted to incentivize these carbon project developers, for example, other types of, not just carbon, other types of environment-related organizations. We are also currently linked to Vera, which is the VCS, for any of you who do know the carbon measurement frameworks. So in the same way that Vera allows community biodiversity standard label to be applied to their carbon, they also allow the W+ to be used for measurement. And there's a lot more to say, and you probably have some questions, but I wanted to direct you to the website for this, and there's much more to see, and we're happy to talk to anybody. We're also here as WOCON. We deliver gender services as consultants to anybody who requires either help in training and building capacity building for how you do gender assessments, how you develop gender action plans. This can be in relation to the requirements of the GCF or the GEF, for example, and then how you measure these results using the standard of the W+. Thank you very much.
Thank you, that's very interesting. So do not use V word, the vulnerable. And very interesting that WOCAN actually developed the measurement for women empowerment. That's very, very, I think like it's everybody needs that. So without further ado, I would like to invite my next speaker, Mbak Tantri, to share what she's been doing with the women's group on working for climate actions. Welcome, and please give her.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to be in Madrid to be part of this important event. I'm just a normal citizen who have concern about what's happening with our climate. I've been listening to a lot of climate change, a lot of activities, but I felt like this is part of me that I have to do some action and do something to deliver this is happen. So, okay. Indonesia, we are with over 17,000 islands. Indonesia is one of the countries that most vulnerable to the effect of a climate change. With over 17,000 islands along the equator lane, there is no simple description about the food biodiversity. I know one of the biggest impact of the climate change is the food security. With over 200 million population, how can we feed them in the next 50 years if we do not take our action now? Over 400 years ago, all the foreigners are coming to Indonesia. to get all these various spices, and which is now is being threatened by the climate change. Women have a multiple roles, from cooking to regulating the household life, and also work to support the family. Decision-making related to resource use and food availability is often in the hand of women. Indonesia have 57 million small medium enterprise, which is almost 60% are owned by women. So it's 36% are own business in Indonesia, and 46% are in culinary, food industry, as well as fashion. They're just a simple woman who are working to get the family running, and most of them also in the doing in farmers, and they just don't know how and what is impacting their business, or what their business contribute to the climate change. They were not aware of that. Each of these segments use natural resources without realizing the consequences of their business will have an impact to the climate change. Not only impact the climate, but also their business will be disrupted. Climate change has a real impact on social change, especially on crop failure, scarcity of water, fuel costs of the supply food, water, energy, and the household will be decreased. So what should we do? I always like to say woman is an agent of change. Women play an important role in climate change. Awareness to protect environment and adapt to climate change starting from home. My organization is a womanpreneur community. We have a 15,800 womanpreneurs span from Aceh to Papua, and we already have 780 new local brands in Indonesia. Our vision is women empowering women. Our mission is to assisting women to discover the potential and the spirit of entrepreneurship. Once women is being economically independent, they would have be able to stand on their own, and they will be assisting the family to a better life. So what should we do? How we started to get our act together is by starting to implement or to introduce the climate change to all our members, starting in the class on how that climate change can affect their business if they do not care or know what's happening in their surrounding. So this is our first actually class started 3 weeks ago. We put, if you see the small logo of the reality project of Ibu Amanda in Indonesia, that we introduce the climate change information for our members. So hopefully, women must be included as stakeholders to provide understanding of the impact in their business to the environment. Nevertheless, that I like to thank you for these opportunities, and let's get our act together to fight this climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Andri. And so we've heard from the women, like um, these two wonderful women, like how women can engage on this crisis that we're facing, and that they could be the agent of change. But along the same lines, youth has put climate change as a high priority issue as well, especially because some of them already experienced the effect, including floods, droughts, uh, failure to the extreme weather, as well as clean water supplies disruption due to the changes of the weather patterns. And also this is like another thing is like changes in lifestyle, because due to climate change they have they have no choice but to change their lifestyles. So international organizations supports partnership engaging women as stakeholders and planners, and as well as also like supporting youth, because just last September, the first ever United Nations Youth Climate Summit was conducted in New York as a platform for young climate action leaders to show their solutions as to the United Nations, and their meaningful engagement with the decision makers on climate change. So various engagement and technique are currently being used globally, but we would like to hear from our youth from Indonesia how they involve the youth in community climate action, and also how do they engage this UNFCCC process. So I would like to invite my wonderful four youth speakers. They're all here to the stage to take the seats. First is Laitani Belai Jandam, who's a representative of Dayak youth community in Indonesia, and she will talk about how indigenous youth preserve the environment. And please sit down first. And then I would like to invite Bindu Bandari. Yes, Bindu, please come to the stage and take your seat. She's from Climate Interactive, and she will talk about the role of youth constituents in the UNFCCC process. And I would like to invite Adinda Saraswati. She will talk about how women and education can change the course of youth movement against climate change. And last but not the least, Ramadan Subakti from Gerakan Pramuka Indonesia. He will talk about scouting for being earth friendly. Ramadan, can you please take your seat? So first, I would like to invite Laitani Belai Jandam to share with us how the indigenous youth preserve the environment. Belai?
Can we give her thank you, Tanta Nana. Now, imagine an indigenous child born in the center of Borneo in the year 1950. That child would have been surrounded by about 51 million hectares of forest. They would have been largely isolated from the outside world, and so would have lived a life the same way that their parents and grandparents did before them. Now, imagine an indigenous child, also born in the center of Borneo, 50 years later, in the year 2001, the same year that I was born in. That child would have been born into a world where most of that forest has disappeared, and into a world where vast connections to the outside world have been made. Roads, cars, the internet. They would have grown up with technology, modernity, and certainly they wouldn't grow up the same way that their parents and grandparents did. This shows how the world has changed. My question today is, how do we make sure that the culture doesn't die? Good morning, everyone. My name is Laitanya Belajandam, and it is an incredible honor to represent Indonesia and the Dayak youth community to speak about how we, the youth, can help find the answer to that question. My parents' job have always been involved with communities and environment. And so I would come along to these remote areas all over Indonesia. I will learn about the traditions, the cultures, lifestyle, and their environment. I am a Dayak, the indigenous people of Borneo. As a Dayak, my parents' projects anywhere in Borneo excites me. So it was an honor when I finally got to meet with one community that my mom has worked together with for almost 4 years. They are called the Dayak Iban of Sungai Utik. They live in the beautiful rainforest in West Kalimantan. The Sungai Utik people are special, and they're special because their culture is still very much alive. They still live in a traditional longhouse, and they still live surrounded by about 10,000 hectares of customary forest. They live by the rule of protecting the forest and living in the Dayak Iban culture for generations. Under the guidance of Apay Janggut, the strong leader and forest guardian of the Sungai Utik, they are able to protect their forests from palm oil, illegal logging, corporate interests, and managing it sustainably for hundreds of years. Now, their first challenge came in 1970 when, under Suharto's New Order government, they began issuing logging rights to its companies. In 1979, they were faced with companies who wanted to exploit their forest because they were licensed. And again in 1990, Apay Janggut, the leader, was approached by a chukong, a dubious land agent, who came and thrust a box full of dollars into his hands, saying that he wants to buy their rights to the forest. Now, the Sungai Utik is kind of like a microcosm of our world today. We also have land and forests that often face threats like money, power, comfort. But what makes them different is that in both occasions, they were able to say no. And they were able to say no because of their values. Before I left to come here, I met with Apay Janggut, and I told him I will be telling the story of Sungai Utik here today. He asked me to repeat this phrase that reflects the Dayak Iban values. It goes, "The land is our mother, the forest is our father, and the water is our blood." You can see that nature plays such a big role in their life, and even more, nature is their life. And so no matter how much money they're offered or how much power they can have, their values always lead them to choose nature, culture, and self-determination. Now, the reason why I opened with the question, how do we make sure that their culture doesn't die, is because culture, like people in Sungai Utik, are cultures that are key to what we know as natural climate solutions. They demonstrate how indigenous initiative can actually be feasible and supportive of climate action. However, we have two problems at hand. The first problem is that the indigenous community are facing a threat called change. Just like in the story of the two indigenous children, the world is different now. And so preserving the environment 50 years ago would be different from preserving the environment today. Yes, we still need to preserve the environment. Yes, we still need to protect the forest, but the way we do it is bound to change. That's why I would like to say that culture cannot survive as a museum. In an ever-changing world, the cultural values endure, but the culture must evolve. So my next question is, who is best to manage that evolution? Young indigenous people. Young indigenous people are best to manage that evolution because they are the ones that are born with the cultural values, but into the world of today. They are the ones that best understand the traditional world and the modern world. They are the ones that can bridge both worlds. And when they inherit the culture and resources, they also inherit a responsibility. And they understand that, and they want to do what they can to protect their environment, to protect their forest, to protect their culture. Now, the second problem is that due to these changes in the world, often the youth go out of their community to seek knowledge and experience, but then they forget to come back. This is why Apay Janggut believes the need of cultural identity empowerment. I see this happening with two of my friends from Sungai Utik. The first one is Yesi. She is a 16-year-old girl who aspires to be a medical doctor to help provide healthcare for her community back in Sungai Utik. She does this by going to Java to stay with my family and I to prepare her for medical school. And once she has graduated, she is committed to come back home to Sungai Utik to help. The second example is Kinan. He is a 15-year-old boy who speaks very fluent English and is a very good photographer. Kinan uses his talent for activism and to raise awareness towards the cultures and traditions of Sungai Utik and the Dayak Iban that he is very proud of. Both Yesi and Kinan are great examples of how a strong cultural identity keeps the community alive. Keeping the community alive means keeping the cultural values alive. And if the cultural value we are talking about here is preserving the environment, then they are the ones that are keeping our forests alive. However, not all indigenous youth still live in traditional ways. The Dayak youth community is a community for Dayak youth who live outside of Borneo, like myself, to come together and support the preservation of both our culture and our environment. The aspiration is for Dayak youth anywhere to be able to contribute. But no matter where they are, and no matter what their cultural background is, youth anywhere in the world can contribute to climate action. Take, for example, plastic in schools. Back in high school, I worked together with the Green Club of my school to start a plastic-free policy in our canteen. We were able to meet with the leadership team of our school, and they accepted our proposals. And so our canteen went from wasting hundreds of single-use plastic a day to zero. At the end of the day, young people everywhere in the world will be the ones that live with the ever-increasing consequences of global warming. But I am here today to state that we want to and deserve to be involved in climate action. We are not the stereotypes that some people would have us be. Youth and indigenous people are not inexperienced. We are not underdeveloped, left behind, unable, and we are not irrelevant. In fact, we're hopeful, we're visionary, we're energetic, we're passionate, determined, and we are the owners of the future that is at stake here. And so today, we demand recognition, assistance, and respect from those whose leadership in climate change is failing. Today, I would like to ask for you to give us the chance to become the leaders against climate change. And if we still have time, I would like to show a video about the Sungai Utik community. Thank you.
Naman kami, tanah adat, hutan adat, tu tadi, dia magang. Budaya dia, seni dia, beka buah, beka air, pokok ya, beka tanah, beka kayu, semua bisik magang.
Masalah yang dihadapi Sungai Utik pada saat ini yaitu belum adanya pengakuan dari pemerintah untuk legalitas wilayah adat Sungai Utik.
Lawan kami itu petan ke menua, kami nak orang nebang kayu di Galugiang. Dan orang puluh kiri di Galugiang semua, kami dituk nak. Nebang kayu ni kita untuk derimbu pembangunan derimbu nadai dijual.
Saya bawa anak-anak pergi ke hutan dan kemudian mengenalkan hutan ini tidak boleh kita rusak, kita harus jaga.
Menua tu dah jadi milik orang semua itu. Ngambil orang semua dalam dunia tu nemu. Abak ya buku di undang-undang surat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Belai. Well, I believe that the indigenous communities are the water protectors, forest protectors, and you name it, any natural protectors. So certainly we need to support them and also like along with them, together with them to protect this wonderful earth that we have. And of course, the indigenous youth is there because they have a very unique position because they're preserving their cultural values, but at the same time they're having this understanding of this modern world. So they have a very important role on this movement. I would like to invite Bindu to share with us what is the role of the youth in this UNFCCC process. Welcome, Bindu. Can we give applause to Bindu?
Thank you so much. It was so inspiring to hear from all the previous speakers and my fellow young colleague. Namaste everyone, I am Bindu Bandari and I come from Nepal. We were just talking about islands and I come from the land of the mountains. What a good connection we are trying to build here. So I'm now working with Climate Interactive, and with the help of the innovative tools, I'm trying to build the capacity of young colleagues like myself in the communities all around the world. So here, I do not have any presentation. What I'm going to share about is a personal journey, how I came into the UNFCCC processes. So it all began in 2013 when I was still in my undergraduate studies. Back then, I had no idea about what climate change is because it was a very foreign term in a country like mine, Nepal. So back then, I joined an organization called Climates, which is a youth network. That was not intentional. I was looking for some opportunities to get involved and to utilize the spare time that I had. But when I involved with that youth network, only then I got to know from many other people, young people from around the world, like what actions they are doing and how concerned they are and why I should be involved in this process. So it was back then in 2013, and here I am in 2019. In a way, it has been a long journey with many challenges, but also with many opportunities. So when I'm usually talking about climate change and youth involvement in climate action, I would not like to express and emphasize more on the challenges, because that is what we hear all the time when we are in the, especially in the spaces like this, where we talk about like why we cannot meet this agreement, what are the challenges, how to meet the how to balance the economy and also the justice. So there are so many these issues, technical, economical, a lot of challenges and challenges which can easily make us frustrated. This is not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about opportunities, how I got into this space. So in 2013, as I said, I was a student of veterinary science background, loving animals, caring for them, and treating them. And it was quite not usual for young colleague like myself to be involved, from the medical science to be involved in issues like climate science, because how it was perceived back then is it is a topic to be concerned by the people from the environmental science background, because that is what they do for their job. But when I got involved, I used to get a lot of questions like, what are you doing? Where will you end up? What kind of career prospects do you see in this field? There are so many environmentalists already who are caring about this issue. Why would you like to add yourself when you are in such a different field? You have a secured future, being a veterinarian, which of course is a respected profession. But then what I realized back then is there are very, very less young people like myself, especially from the countries like mine, which is least developed country. Not many young women were in the position to take that leadership. And how I framed it as, this is the opportunity, not only the challenge, and I can be in this space, demonstrate my leadership and empower other young women like myself in this journey. And yesterday it was International Mountain Day, and it has been like 7 years I have been in this journey, but it is not very encouraging to see that young people from mountains are not like as highly represented as they should be. So what I have been doing now is trying to really focus on building the capacity, because building the capacity with best available science in climate action is the only way for young colleagues like myself to stand in this forum with pride and advocate with some scientifically valid logics. And this is the tool, as you can see, En-ROADS. So what this tool does is, this is developed by MIT and Climate Interactive. What I'm trying to do is really diffuse this tool to as many young colleagues and also to other people who are interested to really ground their thinking in the best available science. And with this tool like this, as you can see, there are different options, and it shows how changes in land use, agriculture, forestry impact the climate outcomes. What it gives us is really the ability and capacity to be involved in this process of UNFCCC, because we definitely don't want young people like us to be spending our energy just in the stress and just making noise, which I doubt are being really heard. So there is a need for young people and to step up, take leadership, not just in the streets, but also in the processes like this. And tools like this, many people necessarily do not know about tools like this, which is freely available. So I am doing my part to disseminate this tool to wider communities so that they can grow their capacity and their understanding in climate action and be really advocative and be vocal in this process, because only making noise and ranting the same chant won't make a difference. We need to orient ourselves towards solution. As my colleagues just mentioned, that young people are already ready and they are taking actions, but we also need to make sure that our actions are grounded in the best available science. And I would also encourage all of you to go visit this tool, En-ROADS. It is freely available. And there is also a training series that is coming that we are launching early January. It is, of course, free, and I would encourage each and every one of you to tap into opportunities like this, which really builds your thinking and force meaningful conversation on how to address climate change, not only from the challenges aspect, but more onto the solutions, how we can direct our energy, how do we know what we need to address climate change meaningfully. This is a video, as you can see, this is very highly interactive tool. You can change different parameters and see actually how different changes in the energy mix impacts the temperature, and there have been so many different sliders. There are 18 total sliders that can be moved to see actually what set of sliders can work to what extent, what is high leverage, what is low leverage, and how do we get to reaching well below 2 degrees. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bindu. Actually, I just learned En-ROADS last year, I think. Yes, yeah, last year. So it's been like almost 2 years, and it's been very useful, the tools, and I encourage everyone to go see it and check it out, because if you work in a climate action, you need that, because you need to know like which part that you need to emphasize. So thank you, Bindu, for sharing that, and that's, showing us, because I know like in En-ROADS, mostly young people, right? Yes, so far that I've met, they're all like very young. So now, how can women and education change the course of the youth movement on this climate change space? I would like to invite Adinda to share to us, and so without further ado, Adinda, please take the floor.
Good morning, distinguished guests and panelists. My name is Adinda Saraswati. I'm a high school student, a member of youth community, and I'm a writer. In my mind, I have 3 priorities that still haunt me. Number 1, climate change is always a priority. Whenever I think of it, it is the simplest issue in the world, the most easiest to understand. It's the hardest to find a solution for. Because the current world leaders have contradicting views when they think about people like me, about the youth. They think of us as inexperienced, mentally unstable, and neglectful people. Number 2, inequality. It is rooted by patriarchy and conservatism. And third, lack of education, triggered by poverty, untrained teachers, and lack of materials. Women and children are the most vulnerable groups of society. They make 80% of the victimized people because of climate change. It happens to women because the adaptive capacity is very narrow, because they only handle household managerial roles. Women and children are heavily disregarded when education is discussed, because not much believe that empowered women can enhance the effectiveness and sustainability of climate change projects. Stating that they make 60.7% on education and they make 66.8% in medical sector. Now, why are there more casualties on women and children? Generally speaking, they are highly exposed to the impacts of climate change, but let me narrow it down. They are highly sensitive by climate related stimuli. So they're not only impacted greatly by the effects of climate change, but what triggers climate change is also what makes them the disadvantaged members of society. Because women tend to be poorer and they receive less education, thus they are unable to access the technology they need to adjust their livelihoods to the severe change in climatic conditions. By technology, I'm saying electricity and drought-resistant crops. So talking about solutions, I have three. Number one, consolidate gender perspectives into mitigation and adaptation practices. When governments make programs and policies, women must be consulted for the building of their skills and knowledge. And overall, when investing in technologies and initiatives, recognizing the women's needs and roles must be important, and especially for indigenous expertise and traditional practices. My number one solution is considering gender-based vulnerability, inequality, and poverty. When making policies, governments must know that women contribute themselves to environment, social, and economic development. Now imagine if these policies are aimed for them to make their lives better. And implementation, monitoring, action, technological, and strategical monitoring must be proper and gender responsive. And lastly, build up asset base for women. Lack of secure rights, inheritance right, and training is what led women cornered, not only by society. Now imagine when governments, they establish policies and strategies around environmental protection, disaster response, resilience building, and land security. The world today, the world between today and 2050 will not only be saved from 2 billion tons of carbon emission. We will have rise of farm yield from 20% to 30%. Talking about education, I'm done talking about women. Education is for life. Education provides us capabilities, choices, potentials, and adaptability. Now, let me tell you a story I experienced 1 week ago. 7 days ago, I went to Yogyakarta with my schoolmates. We went there for the completion of a school construction. We were divided into 5 teams, and surprisingly, I'm glad to say that these 5 teams are led by women, my friends who are girls. And the principal of the school is a woman. Now, when women are educated, they will enlighten youth so that youth become knowledgeable. And using their own modern knowledge, youth will live as modern citizens of today to make new potentials and possibilities. When doing this, they are breaking the old belief that we are inexperienced and neglectful group of generation. And doing this also transform our awareness to ownership. When we are enlightened, we will have the power to stay aware, but also take another step from awareness to ownership, ownership of our actions. And proving those beliefs wrong, we will fulfill our promise, our pledge to save our future that is now at stake. And I'm glad to say that this process has already begun. On the bottom line, our actions in facing climate change defines our perspective. We are gathered here because we really care about our future, about the youth future. And we all have choices, 2 choices. 1, we stay aware but we stay quiet. Or 2, we take ownership of our actions. We make our actions as our response. I choose to take ownership of my actions regardless on what society say, regardless on what people say about me. I choose to break the stereotype that women are feeble-minded, are vulnerable. And I choose to break the stereotype that youth is the inexperienced generation. I choose to say this because I can. I was once a girl and now I'm a grown-up woman. I choose to act to what I believe. I'll choose to stay as the responsible human of the earth. Thank you.
Are you sure you're still in high school? I don't believe that. Do you think she's still in high school? Well, her speech is not like, well, I believe when I was in high school was not like that. So, but it's so, I mean, like, for me, it's a heartwarming feeling for me because to see these young women, like, like have this power, it's just, like, I mean, like, I'm almost like having tears in my eyes because of that. I feel so moved. So, but I'm sure many of you were in the Scouts when you're young. How many of you are in Boy Scout or Girl Scouts? Well, quite a number. I was in the Girl Scout also. So I would like to invite Ramadan Subakti, who's the representative of Gerakan Pramuka Indonesia, which is the scout in Indonesia, to share with us what is like scouting, like being earth friendly. So Rama, the floor is yours. Can we give applause to Rama?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rama, the member of National Raffer Council and representative of Special Troop Saka Wanabakti and Saka Kapataru Gerakan Pramuka Indonesia. Today, I would like to share about audience about scouting for being earth friendly. As we all know, that climate change is the biggest problem that can affect our living. This is a photo mine Scott. Do you know Scott one only Indonesia constitution have constitution in Indonesia? Next slide. Next slide. Strength Scout is one people. This is 50 members in the world, half member in Gerakan Pramuka Indonesia. 80 members for of 16 and 55 years old, half in 35% Indonesian youth. For special, we have 11 special troop Gerakan Pramuka. Here, Saka Wanabakti, Saka Kapartu, and then so much more special troop. We make a relationship in partnership and government and non-government, all about creating better world in planet Bumi. Next slide. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of last November, we are already implementing activity is Indonesia Green Camp. Our Pertikawan wide 5,000 participants. 5,000 participants. This event supported by Ministry Forestry and Environment. I will show this after movie video. Enjoy. Next slide. Earth-friendly activity, one conservation activity, planting, white release, eagle, tarsal. We have rehabilitation to build a platform, hashtag Pramuka Bersih Negeri, and Kawan Bumi. Third, energy saving, scout bike, and then support Earth Hour for reduce, reuse, and recycle activity, and use of tumbler, and then waste recycling, and use of the plastic bag. Last, the issue of forest and land fires is firefighting and then fundraising in each activity of the Gerakan Pramuka. Next slide. This is Kawan Bumi with Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia. Next slide. This is Green Campaign during Car Free Day Jakarta on Tamrin. Next slide. Conservation, all about activity conservation is supported by Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia. Next slide. Our future goals, one, improve to image green campaign of the Gerakan Pramuka in media sosial. Two, establish cooperation with various parties in the spirit, Earth Defender. Three, the promotes Kawan Bumi and hashtag Pramuka Bersih Negeri each region in Indonesia. Four, we have produced a climating book and then activity of the Gerakan Pramuka. Next slide. We have event Road to PWN 2020 Scout for RCD issue based activity community development camp. This is purpose goals in quality of human resource, and then 7.000 participant domestic and foreign. This is logo and mascot. Next. The biggest enemy of the environment and forestry market is the habits, because not everyone understand about climate change. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Rama. Certainly being a scout, that's one of the way for me to love nature. And because of the constraint of time, because we started late, so I can only give one, like one questions, opportunity for one question from the audience. But you can go to slide.do for also like put your questions or answer some questions on that. And then the code is Indonesia. This is like to Slido, right? So is this the question? Oh, you can put your comment or like, like anything that you want to talk about this session in Slido, sli.do. And yes, in slido.com. And then the code is Indonesia, it's all in capital. So is there any questions from the audience? Oh, just one question. Yes, yes, can we have a mic? Can you state your name and where you're from?
I'm Hanadi from Sudan.
From Sudan.
Thank you for this interesting presentation. I just need to know something about forest fire protection. I need to know if the local communities have a role in that, and or it is just responsible for government, and how I need to know something about the equipment used and from where you provide. Is it from government or you have supporting by difference according to climate change issue?
All right.
For other organizations like Green Climate Fund, GIF, and something like that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Is there anyone who would like to address that issue from the youth, probably? Or Oh, yes. Yes, yeah, because the topic is about youth and women, but you can meet with Mr. Adi, Nur Adi. He's going to like provide you the answer. And so, because time is running out, so in closing, I just want to say that I believe that yes? Ma'am? Yes, that's from the youth activities. But from your question, he's going to answer like more thoroughly, like, so maybe you can follow up with him outside. So we all know, I hope we all agree that when women and youth are lifted, or in Adinda's word, enlightened, including engaging them in community climate action, there are immense benefits to the entire community and society at large. So with that, I would like to thank my wonderful and amazing speakers this morning, and also I thank all of you for being here to listen and to learn from their activities and their story and their experience, and I hope they're all beneficial to all of us. Thank you. Terima kasih. Muchas gracias. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nana, and all the speakers of today's session, the first session. And after this, we'd like to invite all the speakers and also the moderators to come to the center of the stage to take the photo session, and then there will be a giving of token of appreciation by Bapak Nur Adiwardoyo on behalf of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry.
Okay.
And there will be souvenirs from the Committee of Indonesia Pavilion. Okay, please give a round of applause to all the speakers and moderator for the first session of today. And everyone, we still have various sessions. And the next session will have the title of Storytelling to Communicate Climate Crisis. That will begin at 10:30. So everyone would like to suggest you. For all speakers of previous session, we'd like to invite you all to take a photo session with His Excellency Vice Minister of Environment and Forestry. Okay, give round of applause once again to all of us. So that was only the beginning of our sessions for today because we have another 4 sessions of Indonesia Pavilion before we have a closing ceremony for today because this is the last day of Indonesia Pavilion. So at 10:30, we will have the second session with the title of Storytelling to Communicate Climate Crisis. So everyone would suggest you to please stay on your seat and make yourself comfortable. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome you all to join our second session of today with the title of Storytelling to Communicate Climate Crisis that will begin in 5 minutes from now. And also, we'd like to inform you to please join slido.com for the question and answer session. Please submit your questions to make the discussion more interactive, okay? And for additional information for the details of the agenda, as well as for the live streaming and also the materials of presentations, you can find it on our website. Please go to indonesiaunfccc.com. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful presentation. MC, sorry. Once again, we'd like to welcome all guests, delegates, participants of COP25 to join Indonesian Pavilion session that will begin shortly with the title of Storytelling to Communicate Climate Crisis. So everyone who is interested in this session, please have a seat and make yourself comfortable. Thank you. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our second session of today. Okay, everyone, before we begin, I would like to inform you to please submit your questions for today's session at slido.com and please mention hashtag Indonesia so we can make the discussion more interactive, okay? And without further delay, I would like to invite the moderator of this second session, Ibu Tricia Megawati. To Ibu Tricia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Atika. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So quiet. Can we say hello or good morning or hi? If I say, no, sorry. If I say good morning, please also say good afternoon. Good morning, everyone. At least I hear your voice. Atika, can I borrow this? It's